I think it's not only Jewish religious life, this is Jewish life, Jewish identity. Identity is a verb. It's not a noun. It's something that changes always, and it's really a life's work to find our identity, to create it, and to accept that there are huge changes.
Welcome to Something in the Water, a podcast about Budapest's Jewish community through interviews with the individuals who shape it. Thank you for joining us today. We are recording on February 5th, 2026. Today, I'm welcoming Gábor Balázs to the podcast. Thanks a lot for coming to speak with me today.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks. I was interested in speaking to someone that's been involved in many aspects of the community, formal and informal Jewish education, today as the director of the Jewish University here in Budapest, previously the director of Jewish Studies at Lauder School, one of the founders of the Israeli Cultural Institute here in Budapest, the vice president of the Orthodox Jewish community in Hungary, and doing all of this as a modern Orthodox Jew, and I don't know many of those here in Budapest. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Let's start with understanding where you are now as the leader of the Jewish University here in Budapest. Also, I don't know many Jewish universities. How did you arrive to this position?
Maybe it's good to start with it that I really never wanted this position, because first of all, I consider myself as an educator, as a teacher, and being an academic, that's what I really love. Teaching, doing research, discussing things with colleagues, with students. And it also happened to me that during my life, I gained some experience in being in a leading position in an institution. And I really have to say that it just happened that one day I realized that it's either me or there is a serious problem. So I started with the other vice rector in those times. We started to lead the university, two of us. And then after a personnel change, it became a three-member leadership. So director, but on the other hand, I'm not the one person who leads an institution. I'm one of those people.
At first was the hesitation that I'm thinking of actually the vice president of the university I went to. She ended up stepping down after a few years because she felt like she wasn't enough time in the classroom and too much time in the administration. Is that what you were afraid of?
Yeah, it really happens. Like when someone becomes the administrative leader of an educational institution, then education, this is the last thing that you are going to have time. And it's really a big personal sacrifice that you do it for, the greater good, the institution as a whole, but it's a personal price, definitely.
What does it mean that it is a Jewish university? Can you tell us a brief history of this institution?
This institution started as a rabbinical seminary at 1877. It was founded by the Neolog movement. Neolog movement, it's really a unique Hungarian-speaking non-Orthodox movement. It's neither Reform nor Orthodox, but some kind of, it's very connected to the so-called German historical school founded by Zachariah Frankel and the American conservative Judaism in the beginning of the 20th century. But neologs are very unique. I cannot find any other denomination that I can compare it to. And they had this institution. The main goal was giving to rabbis also rabbinical ordination and general knowledge, scholarship, academic approach. And the institution was continuously teaching and having students. They had very famous scholars as teachers, like David Kaufman, Yitzhak Goldziher, like really big names. And a lot of practical pulpit rabbis came out from the institution. And even during the Nazi times, the university or the rabbinical seminary was operating. Only for a few months, they were forced to stop the educational activities. And then came in Hungary the communist period, when the communists, they left the university or the rabbinical seminary because they wanted to create the image that they have freedom of religion in Hungary. So they allowed the rabbinical seminary to work, but they kept it on a very low volume, only a very few students, and of course they didn't receive any support from the state authorities. And after the communist regime, the rabbinical seminary started to widen its scope, and it became a University of Jewish Studies. That's the official name of the institution, Jewish Theological Seminary and University of Jewish Studies. But I prefer the Jewish University, as you said it, because I believe that the community of the university is really a part of the Jewish community. It does something for the Jewish community. So I would even define myself. First of all, I'm a member of the Jewish community of Hungary, and everything else comes second of it. So I really see this institution as should serve the interest and the future of the Jewish community here.
So on that, what type of Jewish community in Budapest, in Hungary, is the university working towards or hoping to contribute to?
The university itself is a very open Jewish institution. We check Jewish background only in the strictly religious courses of us, like rabbinical studies and the cantoral studies. Of course, whoever wants to participate has to be Jewish from the religious point of view. But all the others, we don't ask. It's for academic studies. It's not important if one is Jewish or not. So this is a kind of vision of the wider Jewish community that I have in Hungary. That there are a lot of non-Jews or halakhically not Jewish but ethnically, culturally Jewish people who are part of the community, and we have to provide for them reliable, sound, academically based knowledge about Jewish tradition, Jewish present, contemporary Jewish societies. So I see ourselves as a source of knowledge, source of discussion in the Jewish community about the Jewish tradition in the widest sense, which is possible.
Can you tell us a vision for the university that you have 5 years from now? What do you hope will be different academically or socially or religiously or in terms of connection to the community?
First of all, you had been there, so you saw our building. Our building was built almost 150 years ago, and it looks like a building which was built 150 years ago. So we have a promise from the Hungarian government that they are going to do a full reconstruction in the building, and they will turn it to an environment which fits 21st century education. In the last 2-3 years, since I and my colleague are leading the university, there was really a huge change in using technology. Only a means in education, but I think it's a very important technology in the service of education. So we also planning to have a faculty for artificial intelligence studies. We want to focus on Israel as well, because in Hungary there are no Israel studies. There are Middle Eastern studies, but Israel as an academic field is not studied. It's many times an ideological discourse that you have in Hungary. That people have very sharp opinions about Israel, for or against, but they actually never really studied the background historical, sociological, cultural background of the state of Israel and the plurality that exists there. So I see it as a very personal mission of mine, and my colleagues absolutely agree with it, that we should try to introduce in Hungary systematized Israel studies, which is not ideology-led. It's not for, not against. That's what academics are supposed to do. And we also planning to have a Jewish teachers training, both formal and informal. I work in Jewish education since 1988, I think, and I tried formal and informal, and I always look for a combination of them, because I think both of them has its advantages and disadvantages. So we are planning to reintroduce in the university the formal courses, or for becoming a teacher, like teacher courses, and also informal Jewish educators courses. And we want to widen our international connections. In the last very long period, many decades, the institution existed in a kind of separation from the international cultural life, and many times in separation from the Hungarian academic life. So now we are reintroducing the university both to Hungarian and to international academic activity.
On this podcast, we've already spoken a lot about sort of the informal education, leadership, Jewish leadership training, stuff that's going on here, Sarvash, Chaver Foundation, youth movements. In some ways, what you're talking about introducing to the university is going to be such an amazing next step for these young people in the community that are so involved in informal Jewish studies in life, how they can take a next step into the university.
You are absolutely right. You see that's how I also see it, as you said. It's also very important for me that if they see popping up young people in the community, then they should tell them that there is a good place for Jewish studies, and we are trying to recruit our students, at least partially, from the Jewish communities.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the university being open to religious, non-religious, halachically Jewish or not, and maybe some non-Jewish students. We've already spoken about the social work program at the university. I guess it makes sense that any community needs social workers, even a Jewish community, or especially a Jewish community. But there are many Roma students enrolled in this program. What does it mean to you that a Jewish institution is educating individuals from other communities that have experienced marginalization and continue to today in Hungary?
Jacob Katz, the famous Hungarian Jewish historian, wrote a great book about getting out from the ghetto. So I think it was a game changer in European Jewish identity and in community life, that we could come out from the ghetto and became a part of general non-Jewish society as citizens and as people who live among non-Jews. So I think the Jewish community and the institutions of the Jewish community have to reflect to it. Although I'm also a firm believer of inside these strictly religious communities, we should have the halacha as our guiding line. But synagogues were always much more than only the religious activity, and it should be open to everybody who is interested. I see the university as a community place, so we are very proud of having this characteristic of the university, that the Roma people, who are usually coming from very disadvantaged social circumstances, as they tell us, they face a lot of negative discrimination in Hungarian educational system, which looks to me very credible what they say, and we are extremely proud that all of them telling us that this is the first institution in their life where they don't face negative discrimination, when they are encouraged. I think it's one of the major tasks of Judaism as well, to help people to get education and then to go back to their own communities. And it serves the interest of the Jewish community, because those people who are graduating in our institution, they will bring another approach to Jewish people and to Judaism than it's regular in Hungarian general society.
Outside of the university, I'm not sure how much the Jewish community is interacting with Roma communities here. My impression since I've been here is not much. In the classroom, as I'm looking at next steps for me in grad school, I'm imagining entering into higher education where I would be one of the few Jews, and I would want to engage in the material from my Jewishness and my experiences. Do you have any understanding of, in these classrooms with people from different backgrounds, possibly tough life experiences, is the classroom equal ground for everyone, or is the classroom people coming with their baggage sort of thing? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Absolutely, and I think it's a great question. And it's also a challenge. I started with Israel again. We just had been with a few of our best students in Israel in a conference. It was a course about multiculturalism in Israel. It was organized by the Moffett Institute, which is basically an edtech, very open edtech educational organization. And the students participated during the semester in a course together with Israeli, Jewish, non-Jewish, religious, secular, Christian, Muslim, Druze students, and it was it was an online course. And at the end there was a meeting. When you've been there, seeing the 250, 300 students from really not only different but also conflicted backgrounds, and you see them sitting together, having an educational experience together, then you understand that multiculturalism is not only a slogan, it can be something that is applied. I would call it even an applied art of existence. And that's what we try to do in the university. As you said, Jewish people in Hungary, many of them, they are coming from well-based, also academically, also economically well-based middle-class background. And they never really see a real Roma. They don't have a personal connection. And when you come to the university, you see sometimes in the classroom or in the corridor before class, after class, an Orthodox Hasidic Jew who is one of our teachers talking with a completely secular Jewish, ethnically Jewish people, and with Roma people who are coming from real poverty and from a small Hungarian village. So when you see this, and when you see that these people are, although they are speaking Hungarian, but it's not the same Hungarian, so they are learning each other's language, then you understand that, yes, multicultural, pluralistic society is a huge challenge. It's not easy to do it, but when it happens, it's a great thing.
This is the role of the university. Now backing up from today, your involvement in many significant educational organizations here in Budapest. Let's start with Lauder School, the private Jewish day school that's here. I mean, as the head of Jewish studies, this is a community that is largely secular. My understanding is that lots of the Lauder families are not religious. How did you strive to introduce Jewish studies to this largely secular community?
So Lauder School, from its beginning, it was a secular or culturally a Jewish community school, which was a complete innovation in Hungary. During the communist regime, it was very discouraged to be culturally Jewish or ethnically Jewish or define yourself as a Jewish nationality. You were allowed to be Jewish in the synagogue. And in your private life, you do what you want, but don't show it. So when after the fall of the communist regime, the secular Jews, which is 95% at least of Hungarian Jewish people, or people who are descendants of Jewish parents, they started to look for their identity. Working with that school needs a lot of understanding, needs a lot of curiosity, and also not having illusions about what a school can do. When the kids go home, and even the grandparents or the great-grandparents were not religious, many times they are anti-religious, many times they are coming from ethnically, religiously mixed background. So you cannot do there a Jewish education which says that there is one right denomination. So it was very much emphasized that this is a non-denominational education, and it's a huge work how to put Jewish identity in that school. Lauder School works on it for 3 decades, I think, and there is still a lot of
work to do.
It's a lot to do. The Jewish Studies director of the school is a very good person, a friend of us who we are discussing a lot of things. And here it also helps what I say, that partnership and cooperation when you admit and you acknowledge that they do have a different conception and a different opportunity of Jewish identity. And even if I wouldn't like my children to live according to that Jewish identity, I have to acknowledge that there are people that this is the Jewish identity that they need and they want.
Since the school has been around for less than 40 years, can you feel that this world of Jewish education that is non-denominational, cultural, is new? As in Toronto, there's so many Jewish day schools like this that I went to, that my dad went to. It's part of the fabric of the Jewish community.
Yeah, it's fact. It's like North American Jewry that I have really a lot of respect for it. First of all, the self-sustenance. Here the Jewish communities are state-supported, which on the one hand, it's a big advantage. On the other hand, if you don't let these communities to work out how to make their own existence from their own sources, then it's always going to be a dependent thing on the state or outside support. So I very much believe in resource creating, both on the identity level and on the economical level. In America, you have the tradition of it for at least 200 years. In Hungary, you have 40 years, and it happened with the Hungarian Jewry that with the best intentions, the Israelis came, Americans came, Western Europeans came, and they really wanted to help. But their help, and they gave a lot of resources. But sometimes when the resources, they are just for sustaining the existing circumstances, and they don't oblige you to create your own resources, then it becomes very comfortable to have this outside support, and you don't work hard enough in investing from your own resources to the Jewish community. And Jewish communities can work only if the members are sustaining, and they can have, of course, help. There are philanthropies. It was always a Jewish thing, but it has to be based on the contribution of the members. I believe in this model in the educational institutions as well, that there has to be a lot of personal input of the members, of the stakeholders, if you want. As I see it, the North American Jewish communities, they are forced to reimagine themselves and to redesign themselves because of the changing circumstances and the changing environments. And in Europe, although we live in really I have to say that this is one of the safest places for Jews today in Hungary. I also see the researches that they show that there is no less anti-Semitism in Hungarian society than it was. Hungarian society has a very strong xenophobic tendency. A lot of people, of course, they don't agree with it, but there is a critical mass of people who are xenophobic and they're hating not only the Jews, but among others, they are hating the Jews. And although the Hungarian government does pretty a lot for the Jewish community and for Israel, and they are, on some ways, they do not tolerate anti-Semitism, but it doesn't change society. We do have to work together, and now we have the partners from the government, so we do have to work with them for the bigger goal, which is not to have a safe society for now, but to change certain social tendencies in Hungarian education and Hungarian society. So there is a reimagining and redesigning of the community if we look for the future and we don't take this very comfortable reality of today as something that is necessary, that it will remain.
This podcast idea, one of the reasons for it was that I guess at home, this is a moment of there being a change in the Jewish world. And to me, it felt like the stories here set an example of what it means to struggle with your Jewish identity, find a way to reconnect, reimagine, and not abandon it, but choose and not take it for granted. I want to share some of these stories in Hungary to show that in the last 30 years, this is what's been happening here.
Jews were an international community even in ages where most people never left their hometown or home village. So it's something that history taught us that Jewish communities always learned from each other. Of course, they didn't agree in everything. They criticized each other. They helped each other. And I think it must be the Jewish reality of today. You're being here. It's, first of all, a brave act. And second of all, you are going to be a very important channel between North American Jewry and European Jewry. And with your help, future will tell it. But there can be real great projects that start from you being here, being open and trying to learn from this reality and then to translate it to your own reality. And I think that many Hungarian Jews are doing it, like the huge percentage of our academic staff are composed from young Jewish scholars that they lived outside of Hungary, they know other Jewish communities, so can they bring the examples that they saw in Jewish communities and in academic communities outside of Hungary, and everybody brings into our inner discourse his or her personal experience.
Yeah. Having one foot in each of these two worlds Jewish worlds, has been very fulfilling to me. So I'm lucky that this worked out. Okay, so right now you're in the process of introducing Israel studies in a formal way to the university. Now we're talking about what it means to learn from different Jewish communities around the world. I don't know how many years ago, but you were part of the founding of the Israeli Cultural Institute. I guess you could say informal studies about Israel and the culture and the history. What was the original idea behind the organization?
This institution was founded by the cooperation between the Jewish Agency for Israel and the Israelis living in Hungary, mostly businessmen and investors, and Hungarian Jews who had a strong connection with Israel. And the basic idea was building up something like the Goethe Institute for German culture, the French Institute for French culture. So it was supposed to be not definitely Jewish institution, but showing also the Jewish face of Israel, and also the democratic, pluralistic, not necessarily Jewish face of Israel. So he didn't want to be just one more Jewish organization, just one more Jewish space. It focused on programs in Israel and in how the Israeli identity can teach European Jewish identity, what are the differences and the similarities. So, and it was a very important part of our mission to go and to try to show the Israeli culture in the widest sense for the Hungarian society. So this was the basis.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And through what sort of activities? Like presenting amazing artists or bringing speakers, like what sort of thing?
Both of them, I can say one of the great projects that they are going on, the Jewish community, the JCC, the Israeli Cultural Institution, its new name is Merkaz, like they are working on it together with the Israeli Embassy, is the Jewish and Israeli Film Festival. This is one way to bring Israeli culture to Hungary and to make it accessible for the widest audience.
True. I've been now to 2 Jiffies, and they are enjoyable evenings, especially now that I'm becoming friends with some esteemed diplomats. This is fun. Theodor Herzl was Hungarian. There's a man in Toronto who has the world's largest collection of Herzl paraphernalia in his home. Every year we would go on a field trip and look at all the new crazy tchotchkes that he had related to Herzl. Can you tell me a bit about the relevance of Zionism in Hungary over the years?
Hungarian Jewish community has a very complicated relationship with Zionism from the beginning. Although Herzl was born in Budapest and he spoke Hungarian and he lived in his early years in Hungary, and he's the founder of the Zionist movement, just like Max Nordau. He also was a Hungarian Jew. On some ways, his identity was not very Hungarian. But we also have the Satmarer and the Munkacher rebels, the most virulently anti-Zionist religious ultra-Orthodox communities. They were in historical Hungary. The Neolog community had a very mixed reaction to the Zionist movement, since the Neologs were a Jewish movement that favored to be integrated in Hungarian culture. Many of them, even nationally, they identified as Hungarians of the Jewish religion. So for them, seeing the Jewish identity is also an ethnic identity. It's the peoplehood idea that we are one people, as Herzl said. It was hard for them to accept, and there were always anti-Zionist tendencies in Hungarian Jewish history. After the Shoah, many Jews changed their approach. The whole Neolog movement changed its approach, and it became very pro-Israel. But during the communist period, when the after 1967, when the communist states, they led by the Soviet Union, they cut off the diplomatic connection with Israel, then the Hungarian Jewish community was also forced to be only Jewish and not Zionist. But I myself, in 1988, I think, when I first went to a non-formal, a non-official Jewish organization, it was a Zionist organization. It, although had its meetings in a synagogue space, but it was like for me, it was a new idea that we Jews are a people. Many of I would say all of my Hungarian Jewish friends, family members, they've heard in the 80s as the like the first time in their life that you can define yourself ethnically Jewish, and this is not a racist thing. Like there was always this kind of fear of being defined as ethnically Jewish, then you might be a target for the Nazis. That's how all my grandparents understood Jewishhood. So Zionism, even today, I would say many of the non-religious and in the non-community-wisely non-active Jews, for them, for their identity is a very important part that they don't want to be defined by members of the Jewish people or peoplehood. They just want to be Jews from a certain distance. For them, it's very important many times to criticize Israel, but this is how they show for themselves, for their friends, and I think also for the anti-Semitic people that we are Jews, but not on that way. And we are completely impartial, which is an absurd. It's an identity absurd. An identity never can be impartial. It can be pluralistic. It can understand other opinions, but you are never neutral. Neutral is not a way of existence. So for them, it's also that's one of the reasons that we need Israel studies for those people, at least to create the opportunity to understand other point of views and not only this kind of meta-narratives that run in the internet, which is usually, it doesn't really matter if it's pro-Israel or against Israel. It's very harmful because it's simplistic. And things are complex, and people don't really like complex things.
It's so interesting to me that somehow affiliating with Judaism as a peoplehood, culture, ethnicity puts you in danger, and maybe religious, private Judaism is what's easier. Whereas for me, my upbringing was that the cultural, ethnic Israel connection is what is so exciting, partly because you don't have to do anything religious, you count, which is something that to me makes Judaism also special, that all these people feel like they're part of it, even if they're not religious at all. But here it's more complicated, and people don't like complicated.
Yeah. And
very interesting.
This is one of the first things that I say in class, that whoever will write in the final essay the words, obviously, naturally, I won't read the essay, because it never in the academic film is obvious and natural, and in identity this is the same. Like, we tend to think that my Jewish identity is the natural and the obvious way of understanding Judaism, and it's a very harmful thought. Many people have it, and that's why it's so hard for different Jewish identities to have a real dialogue with each other. Maybe they can converse on the everyday level, but a real dialogue when you question your own standpoint in order to understand the others, it's really a hard job. It's a huge challenge.
It's a life's work.
Yeah, it's a never-ending work. But I like the definition of Professor Yeshayahu Leibovich, a leading Israeli philosopher, that he defined religious Jewish life is like going on an endless way to the right direction. I think it's not only Jewish religious life, this is Jewish life, Jewish identity. Identity is a verb. It's not a noun. It's something that changes always, and it's really a life's work to find our identity, to create it, and to accept that there are huge changes.
In the first episode of this podcast, Zsuzsa told a story when she was in Munkacs, was talking with a rabbi, and he said Judaism is a treasure, and there's a wall between you and the treasure, and your life is making that wall thinner, and that you might not actually get to the treasure ever, but like this is what it's about, that you're getting closer. What you're saying, it's the right direction.
Yeah, and you should know that there is no end of the way. There is an end to our life, but the way still goes on, and I hope that the Jewish people will go on in this very varied ways and will find on I don't know how, but will find a Jewish way which will be acceptable for most Jewish identities, different Jewish identities. Like it's a good example, your second podcast, which was with another András, not Büchler, but Borgula, who is the head of the Golem Jewish Theater. Like for him, he brings Israeli plays into Hungarian environment and with Hungarian actors, not with Jewish actors. And I think it's a great experience in Jewish identity, Jewish and Israeli identity, that how the Israeli culture, non-religious, not necessarily, like yes, Jewish, but only historically Jewish experience, how it is put into the secular Hungarian society. This is also a way of looking for your own identity and creating your own Jewish culture here.
So I work at the JCC in Budapest. The JCC is the Jewish Community Center, cultural center for Jewish life in Hungary, not religious place, offering a variety of programs for people to connect to Judaism in different ways. Unfortunately, my Hungarian's not yet good enough to attend one of your lectures there, but you are often at Balintaz leading a lecture series for people in the community. What's the audience of the people that you're talking to? What's the unmet need in the community for these people that that this program is trying to respond to?
We have different kind of programs in the JCC that I have the privilege to participate in. They do have a kind of free university, open university, Lehrhaus if you want, which is Jewish studies for general audience, sometimes from university students to retired people coming, many of them having no background, but they are a great public. One of our projects in the university that we are retranslating to Hungarian, the Torah, and we are writing a commentary, a 21st century commentary for the Torah. And it's done by academics and rabbis. But many of the readings, the pre-readings of the ready Hungarian texts were brought to the Jewish Community Center. And the people who, many of them, they didn't have any Jewish studies background, they contributed a lot that we were reading it together, both the new translation and the commentary, and they simply had insights that the Jewish academic and the rabbis couldn't have because we are too much into the material. We have many programs connected to Israel, and the Jewish Community Center is a great forum for us to bring Israel studies, to talk about Israel on academic or even non-academic general knowledge level. I also see an important task in roundtables and discussions when different people with different opinions, they have the opportunity to share their points.
Yes.
And the Jewish Community Center is like the Jewish University. It gives a wide definition of Judaism and Jewish culture, so it's very welcoming to non-Jews who come there and they can participate in the, as you said, it's a non-religious organization, so why not? We are sharing our knowledge and we are learning a lot of humility and lot of self-criticism when we are really having a discussion with students, and we understand that our understanding is never perfect. And when I say, yes, I know it, knowing a thing is also a way, an endless way going into a certain direction. So it's always a mutual contribution of the community members and an academic, a scholar, because we also can learn a lot if we are open enough to hear what other people say.
You are an educator, scholar, academic, and also Jew, religious Jew. You were the vice president of the Orthodox Jewish community in Hungary at a time when it still had an authentic structure and community around it. What did that world have that's hard to find today? What was important to you about Orthodoxy that was lost?
Orthodoxy, I don't really like denominations. I like them as a historical creation, and it was necessary in a certain period in the 19th century, 20th century. I think we live mostly in a post-denominational Jewish structure. Even you can like it or dislike it, but if you are not thinking only about your very narrow community, then you have to admit that denominations say nothing to most of the Jews. And I always saw and liked in the Hungarian Orthodox community that there were people who thought that yes, halakha is very important for Judaism. There is no Judaism outside of halakha as a personal way of life, but they were very accepting for people who had a different praxis of Judaism. I cannot imagine any meaningful variation of Jewish existence without practical consequences to your life. Judaism is a thing you might not live according to the halakha, but if it's not a lifestyle being Jewish, then it's not Jewish. And I think that the halachic community has its own contribution. Thinking like a thoughtful halachic existence is which really important to have in modern society because it's pre-modern. And modern or postmodern society has to be reminded that traditional way of life has its own value, even if it's even if you don't want to live according to it, but to see that this is a meaningful way of existence in the tradition and having an open understanding of tradition, I think it can teach a lot to modern society. So that's what the modern Orthodox saying, like that it goes together, that's which is very meaningful for me.
How has your modern Orthodox understanding or identity impacted your involvement in this community in these roles where there's not a modern Orthodox community that I've seen?
Sometimes I think it's much more a burden to have this label of modern Orthodox because it creates a lot of expectations. If you use the word Orthodox, it's a very loaded word in Hungarian context. And so I don't emphasize it at all. I'm the head of a neolog institution. So for me, although I never reject this kind of identification, but I don't think it helps today in my Jewish way, in my Jewish activity. I think even without these labels, that the public sees someone who is committed to the halachic framework and tries to be at least an open-minded thinker and to listen to other identities. This can be an example that might be sympathetic to people to follow. So it's more like, for me, not the modern Orthodox, but existing in the halachic framework can be a thing that you can do in the modern world.
Thank you. I want to back up one more time. You went to university in Israel and so sort of became a scholar and also Jew around the same time in Israel. Last time we spoke, you told me that you are a rationalist and also religious person. I want to ask something about these two things existing at once, as a scholar and a religious person, as a rationalist and a Jew. Why do you pray?
I think it's a great question. One of that I already mentioned, Yeshayahu Leibovich, I think his greatest essay ever was about Jewish prayer. And it is a theological problem if your approach is not only emotional, because from an emotional point of view, I can understand praying, like everybody prays when we have this instinct to try to ask for help. But what you say, like being academic and rationalistic, it's a pretty hard task sometimes, because again, it's complex. Like your approach to Bible, you cannot ignore biblical scholarship that tells you that the traditional Jewish narrative that one person wrote at one time, the Torah, is very unsound if you take seriously your philological knowledge. But on the other hand, you wouldn't want to say it to the Jewish community that our Torah is not from Moses and it's not from a revelation, a divine revelation. So you have to find the ways to reshape the idea of divine revelation, to reshape your idea of praying, having a connection with God. And being a rationalist is also to acknowledge the borders of your existence. Like it's a very rationalistic and very academic way to relate to the universe, like realizing that we are so small, we are so insignificant. So I think this is the most profound religious feeling, not only Jewish religious feeling, generally religious feeling, that you really realize your nothingness, and you realize that there is something much above you, much huger than you, much more maybe meaningful than you. And this realization, which I call religious humility, which always teaches your own borders and your disabilities, and you can even understand that prayer might mean like there is not that kind of God that brings the chocolate to the good children, like not having this kind of infantilized conception of God, but still you are being part of your Jewish community, your Jewish past, your Jewish tradition, by saying the prayers, by being the member of the community. So you can have a lot of rational or rationalizing reasons to pray, even when you don't have this infantile concept of God that sits in the sky and listens to the problems of people.
I really need to go back to my Maimonides readings because I like talking about God. Thank you so much. This has been very enjoyable for me.
Thanks. I enjoyed it also. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a couple good episodes in the works, so hope you stick around and continue to enjoy listening and learn something. See you later.